Hello again. As Britain sinks ever deeper into a catastrophic crisis, with many ordinary people genuinely having to choose between eating and staying warm, as well as finding access to medical treatment all but impossible, one might have expected the Prime Minister to be taking urgent action to cope with this terrible state of affairs. He shows, though, no inclination to actually do anything, preferring instead to try and get his picture in the newspapers and hope that some gullible fools will compare him with Winston Churchill. That's why when he addressed the Ukrainian Parliament today, he worked in the expression finest hour, hoping that this would resonate with the electorate at home and remind them what a stupendously statesman-like figure he cuts on the international stage. Alas, few people are buying his act. I'm sure that he brought the house down in Kiev with his folksy ways, but we at home have seen too much of this posturing fool in the past to be at all impressed. We want him to do something about the shocking state that this country is in, not waste his time grandstanding in Eastern Europe. In the description to this video, I give a link to the text of the speech which Johnson delivered today to the Ukrainian Parliament. It's on the government website, so we may assume that it is accurate. What ghastly stuff he came out with. Boris Johnson uses idiomatic English, the like of which I have never before heard in my life. For instance, he talks of a sense of puzzlement. Puzzlement? I think I have a fairly broad vocabulary, but I've never heard this word used before in my life. Bewilderment, perhaps, yes, but puzzlement. What about this? Your pensioners told Russian soldiers to hop, as we say, although they may have used more colourful language. Hop, as we say. Have you ever heard anybody in England telling anybody to hop? I certainly haven't. I think he dreamed that expression up himself. Then too he uses Americanisms and pretends that they are old English sayings. I suppose that because he was born in the United States and spent part of his childhood here, that might possibly account for this tendency. He said, "You have proved the old saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog," which is an old English saying. It's not an old English saying at all. An American came up with it in 1911, and it's been used many times since, but only by Americans. President Eisenhower famously used it in a speech in the 1950s. Old English saying indeed. For a supposed historian too, he makes some extraordinarily bold assertions, saying of this war that it is a conflict that has no moral ambiguities and no grey areas. Well, if true, this would be the first such conflict in the entire history of the world. As for it is about right versus wrong, it is about good versus evil, people always say that about wars in which I happen to have an interest. For my own part, I would rather that our Prime Minister stopped involving himself in the internal affairs of the Ukrainian and Russian people and focused instead on how to fix the mess that he and his friends have made of this country. He's broken 2 manifesto pledges since 2019 and he's on target to break a 3rd. I suppose he thinks if he goes on some kind of international tour in this way and gains applause in Kiev, then we in Britain might forgive and forget his bungling and deceit at home. I, for one, will not.